Hello everybody and welcome back. As always, my name is Addie and this is the Knits by AJ Knitting podcast and this is episode 50. I hope you've all had a lovely week. I hope you've had lots of crafting time. But yes, let's get into some knitting. I have only really worked on one project this week. Everything else has kind of had a little bit of work done on it, but my main focus has just been on one whip. So I'm going to try and kind of keep it short and sweet today. I'm feeling a little bit under the weather. The first cold of the year has entered the household. My husband's been feeling very poorly. My daughter is just coming down with it. And I've kind of been struggling on with it. So I'm going to try and keep it short and sweet to kind of preserve my voice, because I'm at that point where my throat is so scratchy and nothing is making it better, and so I'm just trying to like limit the amount that I talk so that I don't completely lose my voice. But yeah, grab yourself a hot cup of tea and let's get into some knitting. So I've got two finished objects and two whips to talk through today. My first finished object is a pair of socks, and I knit these up for my daughter. So these were sort of my like on-the-go knitting this week, and she is only 4, so socks for her knit up relatively quickly because they have very few stitches and obviously they're much shorter than my socks. So this is just a pair of vanilla socks. I knit these up out of the week 2 colourway from my Advent from Giddy Yarns. What was it called? If I can't find a reindeer, I'll make one instead. And these are to match my pair that I finished up last week. So this is my pair and this is her pair, and they're so cute. I love them. So I've just done essentially exactly the same, apart from in like a smaller version. So 3x1 rib as always for me, and I did 5 rounds in the main colour and then 2 rounds for each of the stripes, and then a further 5 rounds in the main colour again. I knit her socks with 48 stitches, and then I've done 35 rounds for the leg, heel flap and gusset, done the foot to fit her foot, and then I added in 2 stripes on hers at the end of the foot as opposed to the 1 on mine, because I said last week how I kind of wished that I'd done 2 on the end of the foot for my ones, so I decided to add in 2 for hers because I thought it would just look a little bit more balanced with the 2 on the rib. So there we are. And then I just did the toe in the mini skein. Yeah, these were really good fun. I used about like 38 grams in these, so it was a really nice way to use up the last of the skeins that I had left over from knitting my pair. And yeah, just a really fun little quick knit. I use magic loop to knit her socks because there's just not enough stitches to do them small circular. And yeah, for some reason I can get on board with knitting her socks magic loop, but knitting vanilla socks magic loop for myself, I just don't like it as much. I just feel like it really slows me down, and it just feels a bit more clunky, whereas when I'm doing on a short circular, it just feels a little bit more kind of continuous. I don't know if that's the word that I mean. My brain's very foggy today. But yes, lovely little new pair of socks to add to her collection. And I think I am going to continue this kind of theme with the Advent skeins that I've got left. I've got these 2 left to work up. So this was week 3 and this is week 4. And like with week 1 and week 2, I'm going to knit myself a pair of socks. And then if I have enough left over, I will knit her a matching pair as well. So I cast these on January the 22nd and I cast them off on the 27th. So these took me a grand total of 5 days to knit. And like I say, I just sort of had them in my bag, and then when we were waiting around or like heading out anywhere, or if I had sort of like 10 minutes to spare, I was just knitting away on those, and they just knit up so quickly. Okay, so finished object number 2 is my self-drafted cabled cardigan, and I am knitting this up out of Gepard Woolia in the colour olive, and I have finished it. Well, I finished all of the knitting. It still needs buttons and it's still ever so slightly damp, but this is what we are looking at for the moment. So I've knit this up in essentially what will be size 1 to fit a 75cm chest, and there's 15cm of positive ease overall. And so last week I was saying about how I had taken some of the ease out of the sleeve when I had knit the first sleeve, and how I wasn't particularly happy with it. And I have not, well, I've tried this on before blocking, but I haven't tried it on after blocking. But before blocking, I was just so much happier with how the sleeve was sitting. Before blocking, when I knit it the first time, it was very, very tight on my arm, and it just didn't feel right in sort of comparison to the rest of the fit of the cardigan, whereas this was just sitting so much better. And I was also getting a bit of a fold of fabric back here at the underarm, and I think that's because there weren't enough, like the armhole depth was too much for the amount of stitches that you were picking up at the armhole, and so there was some bunching going on, and that is not happening now, and I'm just so much happier with it. I think it's absolutely lovely with the same amount of ease. And it's not, I think what I was thinking was if you put 15 centimeters of positive ease in it, then it's going to be like massive sleeve, but actually it's not. I think it's perfectly balanced for the amount of ease that's in the body of the cardigan, and it fits in really nicely now. So I have done one sleeve and I have done the other sleeve. And I fixed the issue that I was having with the I-cord bind off. So I had essentially, where you would knit the two stitches together, one of the I-cord and one of the rib stitches, I had knit them the wrong way around. So I went back in and obviously had to fix that, since I had to re-knit the whole sleeve, and now I'm so much happier with this finish. I think it's absolutely lovely. I got a little bit of a bump in my yarn for some reason. I'll have a look at that later. But yes, I'm just so much happier with how this looks. And then I also pulled back the button band that I had started knitting last week as well, and added in the bind offs for the neckband and the body before I then picked up the stitches for the button band again and re-knit it. And I've added in buttonholes in the I-cord bind off, so when you knit this you will not need to figure out buttonholes until you have already finished your ribbing. And so it just means that you don't have to add in buttonholes as you're knitting your rib. And it's something that I really loved on my Circuit, and it was something that I wanted to carry forward into this design. So this is my buttonhole here. And it also means that the buttonholes are almost invisible when you're actually wearing this if you wear it open. Obviously you're going to have the buttons on the other side, but you won't be able to see the buttonhole, so it's not going to be sort of like flopping around or anything. And it kind of, I felt like it gave it a little bit more structure for the buttonhole, especially if you were going to use more of like a lightweight yarn, like a fingering and a mohair to knit this. It just gives it a little bit more structure, because otherwise, like on this, sorry, what I'm wearing today is the Daft Days cardigan, but here I've used a sport weight for my main colour, and the buttons are just pulling too much on it. And so I wanted to kind of make it so that whatever yarns you were using, you were still going to have enough structure there around your buttonholes for it to kind of hold up and not sort of stretch and pull. And I think that I have managed to achieve that with these I-cord buttonholes. And I just think they look nice. And yeah, I'm just really happy with them. I obviously haven't put any buttons on yet. I have got some like wooden toggle buttons, but I'm just not 100% sure on them yet. But yeah, I'm so happy with this. I'm just so happy with how it turned out. I can't believe that this actually came out of my brain and that it fits and it works. So yeah, it's really hard to get it all in frame. I will get some B-roll of me wearing this in its slightly damp form, but it's got a lovely round neck on it. And yeah, I love the 2x2 rib with the cables. I think it just gives it such a sort of cozy vibe. But yes, this is what it looks like. Now I do have some work to do on the pattern writing for this. I kind of fell off with writing it down as I was knitting the sleeves, because to be honest, I got hyper fixated on the fact that I wanted to knit them. So the chart is there, but I've not written up any of my notes yet. So my next step for this is that I want to write up like the full pattern to the point where it's fully understandable. And then I want to knit myself a second sample. Now that I've finished this uses just under 400 grams of yarn for size 1, which actually I think is pretty good, to be honest, for a like all over texture cabled cardigan. 400 meters of yarn doesn't really seem like that much. No, not 400 meters, sorry, 400 grams. It's just over 1,000 meters of yarn. So obviously I then need to work out all the yardages for all of the other sizes as well. I have graded it across multiple sizes, I just haven't done the yardages because I needed to finish my sample first. And yeah, so to double check all of my yardages, I want to knit myself another version of this, a second sample in the next size up. And so I need to choose some yarns for that and actually knit it. So I'm going to essentially like test knit my own pattern in the next size up as well, just to make sure that it kind of works on both sides. And also I wanted to give a couple of different yarn recommendations in the pattern as well. But yeah, I think for the next one I want to try using like a fingering weight and a lace weight together to get gauge and see kind of how that looks, what kind of different vibe it gives to the cardigan and everything. And to be honest, I just want a second sample. So that is my plan going forward in this. Write up the pattern, knit a second sample. Yeah. But like I say, this was always going to be a fairly kind of lengthy process for me. It doesn't really seem, so I want to do like a full like 3-month test knit or 12-week test knit, so that all sizes have got plenty of time to knit up their sample. And that would mean that if I did it now, what are we going into, February, so February, March, April, that means that it would kind of be releasing in like May, and that doesn't seem, it doesn't seem like good timing to release an all over cabled cardigan. I know obviously there's 2 hemispheres, and so everybody in the southern hemisphere will be going into winter, well, autumn, winter around about that time, but it doesn't make sense for my hemisphere. And majority of the people watching this seem to be sort of from the northern hemisphere. So yeah, it just doesn't seem like a good idea to be releasing this in May. I'd much rather release it further down the line. And to be honest, I don't have a huge amount of confidence in myself releasing it at this moment, so I kind of want to double check a lot of my working and like essentially test knit the pattern again myself and everything before I send it off to a tech editor and into test knitting and everything. So yeah, it's going to be a fairly lengthy process. I want to kind of do this in like get it out in like autumn, winter at the end of this year, but we are making good progress. But I cast this on December the 26th and I cast it off on January the 29th. So this took me a grand total of 34 days to knit. And obviously the pattern for me was free because I wrote it up myself. And I used 8 balls of the Woolia. I found them for £5.75 online. And so, sorry, per ball online. So the cost for this at the moment, without any buttons, because I haven't figured them out yet, was £46, which actually I think was fairly reasonable, to be honest. The Woolia is a beautiful yarn to use. I can 100% recommend it. It's so nice. It's beautifully light, puffs up wonderfully. The colours are absolutely stunning. Gives really good stitch definition. So yeah, 100% recommend this yarn. I think it would work really well for stockinette projects as well as sort of heavily textured projects. But yeah, absolutely love it. I can't wait for it to be fully dry so that I can get some buttons on it and, you know, give it its first sort of couple of wears. But yeah, that was finished object number 2, my final finished object for this week. And so because I put so much work into that cardigan, it was a lot of knitting, and I did, to be honest, kind of like hyperfixate on it and not really do very much else this week. I have got 2 whips that have not really had a huge amount of work on them, to be honest. So first up is my northeasterly blanket, and this really hasn't had a lot of work. So this is a pattern by SKEINANIGANS, I believe it is, and I am using my daily advent from Skein in the Stitch, which was Alice in Wonderland themed, and a 3mm needle, and I'm knitting up the fingering weight of this blanket. And I've done so little that I don't even need to like unravel it. So this marker here is where I was last week, and this is how much I've done. Like, what is that? 2, 4, 6, 8. 24 rows. So yeah, really not very much at all. I kind of picked it up and then knit on it for, I'd say, half hour and then put it down. I finished one colour and then I added in the next, although no, maybe I've essentially, all I did was finish this colour and then I've done 2 rows of the next colour, which I think is day 9, because I'm working back this time. And so yeah, really not very much work on that at all. I picked it up for, like I say, about half an hour. So hopefully I'll be able to get a little bit more done on that now that my cardigan is finished, when I'm not typing up bits of pattern on. But I cast that on December the 1st and I have currently had it on my needles for 61 days. So that was whip number 1. And whip number 2 is a pair of socks for my husband. I said a couple of weeks ago, I think, that I want to knit up more socks for my husband this year. And I want to end up with 6 new pairs for him by the end of the year. And so this is pair number 1. And I've just I'm about halfway through sock 1. So this is just a pair of vanilla socks and I'm using up some skeins from my stash. And I do 64 stitches for my husband's socks. And I use, like I do with all of my other socks, a 2mm needle for my ribbing and a 2.25 for the main body of the sock. So I've done a 2x1 rib like I usually do on the top of my socks. It's my favourite rib to knit for the top of socks. And I used Cascade Heritage in the colour Moss, I think it is, for the top, for the sort of like main colour. And then the stripes are in Gusto Wool Echoes. Now I've already knit up a pair of socks for my husband in this yarn. You essentially got 2 50-gram skeins and they're like a gradient. So they started off at like white and then moved through grey into this very dark charcoal, almost black. And so I had some leftovers of each skein. I'm not sure how much, I didn't weigh it. Perhaps I'll weigh this one before I get going. But yeah, this is what I have left of each of those. And so I'm using 1 per sock in these stripes, just to kind of get it out of my stash, because otherwise I was sort of like, what on earth am I going to use this for? It's not enough to knit a shorty pair, and I don't really tend to wear shorty socks very often. And so I thought, oh, I'll just do him a striped pair of vanilla socks just to get these yarns kind of used up. I have the majority of a skein of this moss green. I wonder if it is called moss now. I don't know. But yeah, I've got majority of that left over, so I'll probably be able to get something else out of this green afterwards. But yeah, I've done 10 rounds per stripe. I did 15 rounds of rib at the top and then, yeah, 10 rounds per stripe. So there's 5.5 stripes and then there's the heel flap and gusset. And I have just started on the foot. And yeah, to be honest, I really enjoy having a stockinette sock on the needles. I like how kind of mindless it is for me and how easy it is to knit them and sort of have them as like a portable project. So I'm very happy to have these on the needles. And yeah, I'm just working my way down the foot now. I can't actually remember how long I usually make my husband's socks. So there's going to be a little bit of trying on when I get a little bit further down. I'm going to knit to however long, I'm going to knit to the length that I would usually knit to for my socks and then try them on him and then work out how much more I need to do. I am a little bit worried that I'm going to run out of the like dark grey before I've knit all of the stripes, because this is all I have left of the one that I'm currently working with. So yeah, it might be that there's like a long green toe on them, or like the stripes just stop early, but to be honest, I don't really think he's going to mind. Yeah, it's just, I don't think it's going to bother him at all. I may even like start tapering off the grey stripes, so making them like a couple of rounds shorter each time I knit them throughout the foot, so that it kind of doesn't make it look like I've just run out of yarn. It makes it look kind of more intentional. So like I said, there's currently 10 rounds of the black or dark grey, and then there's 10 rounds of the green. So what I might do is, I've just done 10 rounds of the green and joined in the black. I might do 8 rounds of the black this time and then 10 rounds of the green, and kind of work it through that way, and then see if I have any leftovers, just to kind of stop it from looking like I have run out of yarn. But yeah, just working my way down the foot of these. So I cast these on January the 25th, and they have currently been on my needles for 6 days. So yeah, those are a pair of vanilla socks for my husband. To be honest, there's not really going to be a huge amount of variation in patterns for the socks that I knit for my husband. He just enjoys a vanilla sock, and so that's probably what I'm going to do for him. Knit him 6 pairs of vanilla socks in various different yarns, probably with some stripes here and there. I love a striped sock. I just feel like they absolutely fly. I just never notice like how much I'm knitting until I've reached the point where I've got to change colours. It just, anything striped just feels like it flies off the needles. But yes, that is everything I have to talk about knitting wise this week. I'd love to know what you're working on. I feel like I've kind of fallen off on checking my comments recently, and I do apologise. I've just been feeling a bit under the weather this week, and obviously have just been hyper focused on finishing that cardigan, so I will be better at that this week. But yeah, I'd love to know what you're working on, what you're planning to work on. I feel like now that I've finished my cardigan, I've got a lot of brain space for what I want to cast on next, but I do kind of really want to get into some sewing now. So yeah, we will see where the week takes us. But yes, I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I will catch up with you all next week with some more knitting. Happy making!